Before we dig in, a quick thank you to the sponsors ready to grow with the Soil Sisters. Tejas Tonic is the official beverage of the Texas Soil Sisters. We especially love that the hemp for Tejas Tonic is organically farmed in the Texas Hill Country, with farms in both Dripping Springs and Lukenbach, Texas. The Soil Sisters podcast is powered by B&P Electric. Whether you're building, remodeling, installing low-voltage landscape lighting, or in need of an inspection, B&P is your Central Texas electrical contractor. Find links to our sponsors in the podcast show notes or head over to txsoilsisters.co. You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. Hi, y'all. I'm Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal. We're at day 2 of the Southern Family Farmers and Food Systems Conference, and we're sitting here talking live with Kim Aman, a.k.a. Farmer Kim, the executive director and founder of Grow Garden Grow. Everyone, welcome to the show.
Yay, thanks for having me. I'm so happy to have you here, and we're so excited to mine you for information and just hear all the brilliant stuff that you have to share with us and resources about getting kids interested in this stuff and how we can better educate folks on growing healthy food.
Very nice. I can go on for days, but thank you for keeping it.
It's so funny. She says mining you. And, you know, I have been told for years, I need to pick your brain. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want my brain picked. So now we're mining.
Very
I
nice.
like it. So you're a former public school teacher, 7th generation farmer, and you are growing the school garden movement in Texas, which is a huge feat and something that's so important. What inspired you to start down this route?
So my grandfather was a farmer, and I grew up with him and going to the garden and picking vegetables, taking it to the table, giving it to my grandmother to prepare it. And our family would gather around food and talk about the past, the present, the future, and all the family traditions that tie in and the healthiness of it. And that's where I first learned my farm to table lessons. And it stuck with me when I first, got my first place. I would grow herbs and plants and potted things and try things and always would think about my grandfather when my hands were in the soil. And so working with children and seeing the health disparities and the fact that they're eating Takis and drinking Big Red for breakfast is a real problem. And in Dallas County, there's 10-year-olds with type 2 diabetes.
Whoa.
So that really hit home. And so I love the planet and I love kids and the health of everybody and all working together. And so that's kind of what got me going. I also was the teacher I was a special education teacher, and we were in rooms without windows and fluorescent lighting.
Oh, gosh.
And so I would always have the kids outside because they would be going crazy in those rooms. And we would do math and science. We'd do all kinds of things we'd do multiplication arrays with rocks. And so when there were parents at the school where I taught that wanted a garden, my principal said, go talk to Kim. She's always outside. We can never find her. And so that launched me into school gardens. But the big picture was that I was raised that way. And nowadays, when you talk to people in a room, maybe 3 people raise their hand that they have a garden, maybe 5 people raise their hand their parents did. And then when you ask about the grandparents, everybody's hands go up. But with kids today, they don't have that model. So they're not going to be connected to agriculture and the planet and each other and good food.
This is a true story. So what you're doing at Grow Garden Grow supports 7,000 students, but you started somewhere. What did that first look like, your first iteration?
So I was teaching at Moss Haven Elementary and Richardson ISD, and that's where the first school garden came into my life. I had known about Alice Waters, who's thankfully for her, she started the school garden movement 30 years ago, and we are a little bit behind in Texas, but we're catching up quickly. It's really catching on. But when I started the first school garden, these parents wanted this space. and they were go-getters. And so they connected to everybody doing the work. American Heart Association happened to be their national headquarters, was a mile from our school, and somehow we aligned with them and connected to them. And they wanted us to be their first teaching garden in Texas. And we said, yes, please. When I was in school, I was a good note passer, not the best note taker. And so I learned social media and hashtags very quickly and shared our story right away. And when we broke ground, there were, I think, like 20 news crews from across the country, because it was big news in Texas in 2012 to have a school garden breaking ground with American Heart Association. So that was the first one. And I was still full-time teaching special education, which you have all this paperwork and all these things. So we started as an after-school program. And the one thing that was different about this was I was an educator, because a lot of times a mom or a master gardener wants to start and they don't really know how the system of a school works, but I knew it well. And so that was different. So we did this after-school program, but I connected it to the curriculum and to where the kids were and what the needs of the kids were. And so that immediately gave me cred because I was a teacher. And so we started with 26 kids the first year after school. The second year, 87 kids signed up. And the third year, 225, which was half of our school, signed up for this after school program. But the best thing about it was right away, right from the get-go, the PTA paid me a stipend. Just at first, just to water and do this club. And it wasn't a ton, but it made me think, oh, I have a responsibility. I need to go out there. So when the snow came, or, when it freezing temperatures, I would cover it. When it needed water, I'd take care of it. When it needed things, because I was being valued for my work, and I valued the work that I was doing because I was being valued. And so many times these systems aren't set up to pay people even a small amount or a gift card or something to do the work. And that really set in a program and built sustainability.
That is kind of where we find ourselves right now. We signed a lease on a 1/4 acre lot where we live in Lockhart, Texas, and we're starting what we're calling Main Street Gardens. And it's something that we're doing with the community for those of us that want to garden, want to put our hands in the dirt, want to get off screens, want to do these things, but don't have the time and bandwidth to do it on our own. And I travel a lot, and I have a couple of small things growing, but if I'm gone more than a couple of days, I'm going to come home and everything's dead. Through us talking and putting Main Street Gardens together, all the conversations we have on the podcast and with other people, we recognize the importance of teaching kids this stuff now, because we were farm kids. And same way, our grandparents all had gardens. We were eating fresh food as well. And then now a lot of kids don't even know where their food comes from. And so we just did a fundraiser and raised enough money to buy regenerative soil textbooks for our local independent school district and a private school. And tomorrow we have a meeting with the career and technical education person to be able to implement the hands in the dirt piece with what they're doing in the classroom. Maybe what are some hot tips that you have so that we start immediately going down the right path?
So for sure, listening to what the needs of the school are, that what their needs are, is really important, because you have this program, but they need to get something out of it that values their education process. And especially in the private and public schools right now, some school districts, every single minute of every single day is scheduled. So just to do something extra is a lot. And teachers go, what else do I have to do? It's another thing. So that's really important, to listen to what their needs are and then connect with it. We've taken the TEKS, that's the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. That's what the teachers teach. And we've taken that from kindergarten to 5th grade, and from every single subject, science, math, social studies, history, PE, music, art, and have taken all those and listed them out per grade level and bullet pointed an activity from the garden that each thing connects to that. So it makes sense to teachers, because they know their TEKS, but they don't know how to garden and they don't know what that's all about. But that's lightened the load on them, because they're like, oh, this does connect to what I'm doing. This is important for state testing, which is here and alive and well in Texas. But that's made all the difference in working with school staff is what's this value going to do for the things that I have to teach and what I'm ultimately responsible in test scores with these kids.
Yeah.
Not to beat that, but that is why what's happening in schools. And so many, we were hearing from so many teachers saying, oh, I don't teach science, so I don't need the garden. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. You can write a story about the journey of the ladybug, and you can go out and look at the flowers and see how many blossoms versus buds and do some ratio math work with it. So, and you can talk about the history of a potato, that it came from Peru, but how did it get to Ireland and how did it get to Idaho? Every lesson can connect to the garden. And then also the social emotional well-being of kids is a hot topic button, and it creates so many collaborations with the students that wouldn't necessarily even relate to another kid in their class that isn't like them or maybe isn't the top dog in the class. They can be the garden hero, and it may be the only opportunity for a child to ever experience success might be in those garden lessons that they can take in their whole academic career. That may be it. And maybe they'll become an advocate for food, or a chef, a farmer, or somebody that at least supports the food system and remembers happy memories like my grandfather on the farm
Yes.
memories that I have.
Yes.
What were y'all doing for the harvest? When you harvested the food, did just the kids all take something home? Were y'all using it at the school? What happened there?
So that's become a little trickier to work with because of all the allergies and the gluten-free and the dairy and all, those kinds of things. So, the first thing you have to do is talk to the school nurse, because if you get that blessing, then you're good to go. But we do tastings all the time. We do a lot of cooking with no heat required. And so we have cutting mats, and the kids learn knife skills and culinary things. And we do, butter sandwiches with flowers from the herbs, or actual flowers, edible flowers. And we do taste tests, and we do like yuck or yum. And but we also teach don't yuck my yum, but don't make it public. But they learn a lot about food preferences, and so we do a lot of that at school. Sometimes we don't grow a lot of greens and lettuces. We used to, because we could put it in the salad bar, but we had to provide a parent that could do that, because in the cafeteria systems where most of the schools are, there's no scratch cooking. So,
Yeah.
and there's maybe 2 or 3 people serving breakfast and lunch for 500 kids, and they just don't have the time. So
Yeah.
we had to work out a plan where a parent would harvest, wash, and then incorporate it on the salad day, because every week they would have a salad day, and the parent would go and take things from the garden and put it there. But leafy greens are tricky because of the shelf life of them. So we do donate to the North Texas Food Bank at a couple of our schools. And one school, Moss Haven, the first school that I've been at, we're at 25,000 pounds in the last 12 years, because a lot of the food goes to the kids. And we grow things like potatoes that they can take home in their backpacks.
Oh, yeah.
Onions, garlic is really easy to take home, but we do tasting and edible education with it too.
I love that.
So the school programs that you do, they're elementary school programs. Are there any high school programs that are incorporating the agricultural classes or the FFA, things like that?
There are, and there's actually an agriculture TEKS standards for secondary school from 8th grade up. But we found that they have to have the interest to fill a class, and then they have to have a teacher that will teach it. Some schools in more rural areas do have agriculture programs where they do incorporate those TEKS and offer that for their students. There's 2 that I know of that we are working with, and it just depends on what the weather is, what the students want, and what the school can provide. But we did work with a garden club at a high school that actually went and fundraised for the neighboring elementary school, so that because there wasn't enough room on the campus because of the new football workout facility that was being built. So they they decided they could do a garden at the neighboring elementary school. They got permission from the district. They went in front of a women's organization and pleaded the case and were given $30,000 to build a garden,
Wow.
put in the water, buy a shed, do all these things. And then we helped support them to do a community work day and build that garden and make that dream happen.
That's
Way to go.
fantastic.
Kid power is
Yes.
awesome.
Yes, it is. And that is really, we understand that if they figure this out and see how cool and exciting and interesting it is, things are going to change.
And there's 5-year-olds that do amazing work that you just, okay, we'll try that. Let's
Yeah.
do that. So listen to the kids, because this is their planet, their future, their food system, their educational opportunities.
Is it Paige from the county extension?
Mhm.
They did a school garden with 4-year-olds, and she said they were outstanding.
Yeah.
Like they get it. And once they knew the assignment, they just came right in and went to work. And she said it was so fun watching them.
Yeah.
Just
And
do
it
their thing.
empowers littles
Yes.
to do big things.
That's right.
So, what year did you say you started the gardens?
Well, it took like a year to get the progress going. So we started in like 2011.
Okay, so now some of your students are grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Do they reach out to you and give you feedback on where they are?
Yeah. In fact, a lot of the kids come back for their service hours in high school. And then one student actually came back and wanted to do all her volunteer hours there. And we were on a texting situation. And she would say, "What do you need done?" And I'd text her. And she would, whenever she would show up, she knew, because she was an athlete and had all these things, in their life when they're in high school, they're booked all the time. But she was able to find time to come whenever. And I would just say, "Yeah, do this, do that." And she could do it. And she actually was given a scholarship for her work and volunteerism. And she invited me to the breakfast, and her whole like acceptance speech or whatever was all about what the garden meant to her and what being a part of it was, which was huge. And then last year there was he was I think he was a salutatorian for one of those schools. And he was a quiet little boy. And I remember him from kindergarten to 6th grade. And he actually, for his college admittance letters that he wrote, was all about the farm and how the farm related to life. And how, it was just, you just never know what seeds you're planting and what's going to happen with them later. But for sure, they're going to be food advocates. For sure they're going to think about what they put in their mouths.
Yeah.
They'll probably have a garden when they grow up. They
Yeah.
might become a farmer. You just don't know the power of exposing kids to those kinds of things will lead to them.
Well, and just tying it all back together, there are seeds in the ground in the seed bank that when the time is right, they will sprout.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you plant it today and it didn't happen, potentially down the road that is going to come
Yep.
about. And so that's literally what you're doing, is planting these seeds inside these little minds. And then when the conditions are right, when the things come together, then they're allowed to sprout and get the benefit. And, and again, just thinking about having those feelings and remembering being young and in school and learning from you and doing the stuff that
Yeah.
they did in the garden. So that's really powerful.
There's lots of power in that, which is, I think, because it's so like, it's not always going to be perfect. They
Yeah.
learn that they're not going to get the trophy all the time,
Mhm.
because you go to join a soccer team and everybody
Yep.
gets a trophy.
Yeah.
But in the garden, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And, oh, well, we'll try again this way. Or we might not grow squash in the spring because it's hard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it teaches them resiliency and problem solving, all the things that schools want to do. But Charlie Brown's teacher is not working anymore. And technology isn't necessarily the teacher. They still need that action and doing and hands-on, and experiential learning is really important.
I heard something the other day that technology is the new alcohol. So you know how alcohol gets in and just invites other things into our lives that aren't necessarily good for us. It's literally that same cycle, but it's the technology that is taking up the space and creating,
It's like a drug.
exactly.
Well, and when you think about how COVID changed the way classrooms operate and how it gave an opportunity for schools to just be all digital. Like, we don't have books anymore.
I hate that.
I didn't realize. I mean, I don't have children. And so when we were doing this fundraiser for these textbooks, I had a parent tell me, "Oh, our kids don't even have books at school anymore. This is very exciting." And so we're feeding the technology monster by having them stare at a screen to learn things. So having the time to go outside, be in nature, soak up some vitamin D in the sunshine, put your hands in the dirt, do some grounding. I can imagine that the results that we're going to see are going to be enormous.
Yeah.
At least
Well,
that's what I'm counting on.
Exactly. The like tactile, you're in the garden, but also I love a book. I grew up loving books and reading, like, and to have it in my hands and to turn the page, I'm like, they're missing out on that experience and the joy that comes from the wisdom that you can gain from turning a page and reading something else that you didn't know, or seeing a picture or a diagram of something that's, important to what you're trying to learn. So bless them. I'm so excited to be getting books in there.
And so, speaking of learning, what are the parents learning? Do you find that by having the students involved that you're having more involved parents?
Yeah, it definitely builds community and provides opportunities for people that a PTA meeting isn't their cup of tea.
Yep.
We worked in a school where a dad came and he just was dropping off his kids. He goes, "Can I stay and work?" And I was like, "Yeah, you can." It was a work day. And he loved it. And he got to take jalapeno peppers home and just was eating it up. And he said, I never come to this school except to drop my kids off. And I really like this garden. And the next garden work day, I have a food truck. Could I bring breakfast tacos? And I was like, yes, you can. But it engages everybody. That's been a really beautiful thing to see. What was the question again? Because I had another answer besides the food truck guy.
Well, the parents' education that ends up happening too about our food.
Yeah. So the parents are part of the problem of the food system being, Takis and Big Red for breakfast. But children have been agents of change for a long time. When I was a kid in the 70s, they wanted people to stop smoking, right? So that was a big push. And kids came home and go, "Dad, you're going to die if you smoke, la, 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 la." So then later, recycling the environment, that was a big thing. And so, Earth Day started, and then Indigenous man with the tear running down his face. And that hit me. And I remember that from when I was younger. But they went to the kids, and the parents were like, and the kids were like, "Let's recycle newspapers. Let's do our part." And then now that they're talking about health, American Heart Association, Whole Kids Foundation, all these hospital organizations that are supporting school gardens right now and helping build them, particularly in North Texas. Texas Health Resources and Cook's Children are supporting that. They're getting involved because they see that kids will make changes. Mm-hmm. And it's like when we started at Moss Haven composting, I had a parent that literally said, I cannot send chips and cookies anymore because they only want to bring things that are compostable. And I was like,
way to go.
I'm not apologizing for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. So kids have incredible buying power and buy-in power.
Yep.
And they have power by going home and saying, "I want kale. I want this. I want us to do it this way." So so we're making a lot of changes in that regards too. And then the parents are supporting the program, and the communities are coming together to rally around it.
That's fantastic.
I love it.
So another thing that Farmer Kim does is the North Texas School Garden Network, which is hugely important because it's like, okay, how do we teach the teachers? How do we help folks that want to grow gardens and put these programs together, give them the resources they need? So how far into your journey with Grow Garden Grow did you realize the need for this school garden network that you founded?
So I had to learn about all the things about fundraising and grant writing and social media and promoting things. And I was a teacher, and you are a Jill of all trades or a jack of all trades when you're doing that. But So I had to learn from the ground up. And I worked with Grow North Texas. They were my fiscal sponsor for a while. And then I saw how that system worked. I think I'm on my 5th farm to school grant right now. But we started that way. And then I decided that, we can go in a different direction without having like a collaborator with grants and things like that. However, we still do work together. But garden teachers were the crazy gardener in the room, and there was no one else with them. And gardens were not being sustained because the average school garden was lasting like 2 years because people would get jazzed, they'd help build it. Some teacher that loved it worked on it and then either got tired because weeds and growing things in Texas is hard, or they left and no one knew how to do it. So sustainability was huge. And then I was looking at myself being called all the time to help people in North Texas with school gardens. I am not sustainable. And I don't want all the work that has been done on behalf of school gardens to go away if there's not other people that can take it over. And so the best way to make sure something goes on is to pass on that knowledge. So I'm doing very little teaching with kids anymore, but I'm teaching other people to do the work. And that's really important. And there's tricks and tips and roadblocks and easy ways and disasters that happen all the time that tribal knowledge helps. And so just like a conference like this one where people are connecting, it's not so much the content, it's the people power.
Yes.
And there's huge people power in that. And so being able to text somebody going, do you have a lesson on ladybugs? Or what do you do about, a beetle? Or what do you do to do this? And sharing ideas has been huge. So we meet seasonally because everyone's busy in the world. And we have, breakfast tacos and coffee, and we share. And we also put people that maybe haven't been leaders in front of everyone to share their story and what they're doing and their gardens. So it gives them leadership opportunities too.
Outstanding. So there's training involved. And then I had noticed on the growgardengrow.org that you have a lot of excellent free resources for people like Crystal and I who are not in the North Texas area, but are doing something and kicking something off in Caldwell County. We can utilize those resources. What are some of the training and resources that you have found to be most beneficial through this school garden network?
Gardening 101 is always a big thing, because people want to do it, but they don't know how to grow food. So helping them and giving them kind of best practice tips, sharing planting calendars and what works in North Texas, how to survive the summer. Do you grow crops for the summer if someone's going to manage it, or do you just put black eyed peas in and walk away and come back and you don't have weeds in your garden? So giving them tricks like that, giving them seasonal lesson opportunities and what we might be teaching in the fall so that they have lesson support and content that they can bring back and do, helping them write curriculum if they need help with that, helping them write grants, connecting them to grant opportunities and sponsorships and things like that, and other people in their community that could help them, doing professional development with staff because they're like, oh yeah, garden, that's great. How am I going to do this? Or it doesn't impact me. But getting the whole staff involved in it and figuring out, like, how are you guys going to water it? Can you adopt a garden for a week for every classroom, or just working through things that they need to work with. Also, building school garden teams because I don't want to talk to just one person, a minimum of 3. And then teaching people how to do, because every school has a shared drive where all their curriculum document, their events, their calendars are all kept, having a shared drive slot for the garden and what's going to happen in August, September, October, November, a month-to-month guide on how to do that. So we do anything and everything. And we also ask them, what do you guys want to learn? So we get feedback from them at every meeting to do that.
That's so fantastic. So there is a garden, much like you described. It's at the Pride High School. It's the alternative school in Lockhart, where the principal and one of the leaders in the community who had his own garden when he had lived in Austin, they built this garden together, and it's now feral. How do you tackle a garden that's kind of been left for a while and you're coming back in and you want to start it back up?
Let me guess, did the principal leave?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
There you go. So UT Eden Project has they've done a study about school gardens that was a national study, and it's the most current. A lot of the studies come from like 2000 and early 2000s, and they did a thing about the best practices of school gardens, and the number one indicator of a successful school garden is the principal. If the principal's not on board, it's just going to be blah. So that's a huge piece, because the principal can set the tone and the expectations that everybody's going to use it, or it's just going to be used by maybe special needs students or an after school club or however, but they're going to set the tone of that. So buy-in from the principal is huge. And if you get that to revamp this, it can't be your garden, it's their garden. So what do they want? What are their goals? Working through them. What do you want to see with this garden? How do you want to use it? Who's going to do the work? And helping them develop a plan is really important. We go in and support gardens, and sometimes we're paid for the maintenance part of gardens, but that's part of their plan, not our plan. What do you need? How do you do it? And then engaging the community, all those students that could be doing that work. After school programs, Rotary clubs, women's organizations, all those people that help out would be great.
And we are in a small enough community that I do think that's a great idea of having other groups in the community coming in and using it and being a part of it. Because, yeah, it does seem like a lot of the responsibility was falling on, one or two people. And yeah, they just didn't have the bandwidth. And it's a beautifully thoughtful, designed space. But yeah, it's like, how do we bring it back and then keep it?
And teachers are the most taxed people as far as their time. And that, every year there's new things that are put on them. And so they need help for sure. But a plan. A lot of times people just go, we want a garden. So they grow a garden and they don't have a plan. And they'll just grow it and we'll figure it out. It's like, no. You got to back step all the way to let's figure it out first.
Yeah. Well, is there something that we haven't asked you that's important for the school garden conversation and to help people either create, maintain, or create a successful environment?
Every single subject can be taught in a school garden. Every single student can be successful in a school garden. It builds community. It teaches kids to care about the planet, which there's no planet B, and it is on fire. It teaches kids leadership skills. It teaches them sense of community and a sense of space and place and where they live and something to be really proud of. And those are memories that are going to stick with the kids. And those are things that make school fun again. Just the opportunity of growing something, taking a seed, watching it grow, harvesting, tasting it. It'll create kids that like healthier foods, a healthier planet, and healthier people.
Yes. Sis, is there something that you wanted to ask that I didn't?
Well, I don't know. I missed some while I was choking down the hall, but but this is such good information, and I'm excited to look at your resources and listen to this conversation again. And yeah, I'm just so happy that you're in the world doing what you're doing. My partner and I, for 22 years, we've been together 22 years, and I had a 10-year-old child when we first got together. And so I wanted a school garden, and we have been talking about that for all these years. And now, I mean, life, other things happening, but we are participating in this and helping educate children. And it really just feels like so much momentum or energy, thought that has been put into this is finally kind of coming together, and all the people that can help us make that a reality are coming together. So I just appreciate your knowledge and your history of spending time with kids and families in gardens. So it's beautiful.
Well, it's awesome. And we share with everybody all our resources and everything that we're doing. And we collaborate with people all over the state. And we're really trying to build a statewide movement. with the organizations that are in place, and the people power that's the number one thing.
Yes.
Well, and one of the things that you said that I'm excited to bring into our meeting tomorrow is with the garden-based learning for every class. So, we have a meeting, we're talking about the agricultural track and the floral design track. But now I also want to talk to them about inviting the other teachers to be thinking about ways they can bring their kids outside and spend time in the garden and have garden-based learning that has nothing to do with, these career and technical educational tracks.
Well,
Yeah.
and just being in nature, like out of fluorescent lights and in nature amongst plants. I mean, that just changes your whole interaction with the world around you. So I think that's so important, and I'm excited to have that opportunity for the kids.
I think some people worry about, I don't know how to plant anything. I can't keep a potted plant alive. But there's so many other lessons that can come alive in an environment like a garden.
Yep.
That you can connect everything there.
Yes.
I'm excited to
Me
grow.
too.
Well, Farmer Kim, thank you so much for your time. I know you need to scoot back on up I-35 to North Texas, but we appreciate you holding out and having this conversation with us.
Yeah,
Thank
good
you
luck
so
with
much.
everything. Keep me posted.
Yes.
We
Thanks.
definitely will. Thank you.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.